And welcome on in to another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Here with you guys, I am Mitch Spinell along with Mitchell Balla, here to give you the latest in local, statewide, and nationwide athletics. We thank you for tuning in. Mitch, thank you so much for taking the time to join me again this week. We got a lot to talk about this week. It is officially week one in the books of the high school football season, and we're going to be going over many of the results from this past Thursday to Saturday night.
Mitch, pleasure to be back. And wouldn't you know it, now we get to talk about football. And before you know it, will be every single episode we'll be going from high school to college to pro. But right now we're focusing on high school football, and what an opening week it was.
Absolutely. I mean, we started off on Thursday night with a number of games in the Tuscarawas and Stark areas. And before we get to that, we want to remind you guys that you can listen to this show on multiple podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our main page, Anchor. That's how we distribute the podcast. That is not a sponsor, but we love how Anchor works. Now, you can obviously listen to us on SoundCloud as well. Just look up Big Time Sports on there. You can find our show, the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, and of course our YouTube channel. You might be watching it on here right now, the Big Time Sports Podcast Show, and of course our website, BTS, Big Time Sports Ohio.com, and our Facebook and Twitter pages are BTS in name, at Mitch Spinell, at Mitchell Balla. You got all the stuff there. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to some of the games that happened this past weekend. Starting on Thursday night, we actually had a pair of games. One was down in Shenandoah, in which the Zeps beat the Trojans 48-8. But the game that we were at, myself along with Dave Sheets, covering the Sandy Valley Cardinals and the Fairless Falcons, in which Fairless was able to just rip roar all over the Cardinals defense 31-0 in a game that wasn't even that close, being a witness to it on Thursday night.
I'll be interested to get your take on what everything you got to see, but I'm not surprised by what Fairless did, watching and looking at the recap, Mitch, obviously, and being able to watch the game on Big Time Sports. I am a little surprised that Sandy Valley wasn't able to get anything going offensively. But Fairless, we knew, and we talked to both coaches, and Coach Gamble for the Cardinals and Coach Sarbaugh for the Falcons. And I think when you and I were doing our prep for that interview, Mitch, I told you, I said, look, Fairless is going to have a lot of guys coming back. They returned everybody except for the running back last year, and it looked like Fairless flexed their muscles early this past week, and it looked like Sandy Valley was not ready for it. But still week one, right? A lot of people out there might think, oh, maybe Sandy Valley's down this year. No, I don't think that's the case. I think Fairless, just like we said with Coach Sarbaugh, how do you manage those expectations? Because these seniors and returning lettermen, they have their goals set already. They want to make the playoffs. They want to win the PAC title again, and they want to host a playoff game and win a home playoff game. And so they know what they're out there for, and they came out and they showed everybody in the area in week one. They're for real.
Yeah, a number of players really showed out for Fairless, in particular the Big Time Sports player of the game, Peter Killey, who ended up having a huge rushing night, had multiple carries for many yards. As I get the numbers up here, I believe 1 touchdown, and quarterback Carson Colucci had 2 early touchdown throws to Brody Pumnio, one of the top receivers for Fairless. So that was an impressive night for him, as well as the rest of the Fairless offense. And that's a big question mark for Coach Gamble's squad. Obviously, having your starting quarterback in what would have been Nick Petro out with an injury the previous week, it's got to hurt. And, you know, they tried to make it work with 2 different quarterbacks throughout the game. The first one came in through 2 interceptions. The next one had a bit of a better start. That's a freshman having to come in and sort of work as a janitor of sorts. So it's a very tough task for many people to, for most people to try and jump into. But I can't. I kind of feel for that, for somebody in that scenario, because it's not easy.
No doubt. You cannot get yourself ready for that moment. You think you could maybe do that, but at the same time, Mitch, we're talking about all eyes were on that game because it was one of the 3 games in our area kicking off high school football. And everybody knew the magnitude of that game, right? We know that Perry and Central Catholic up here in Stark County was another game, and I think we'll probably get to that here shortly. But
yep,
you can do all the prep you want mentally, but when it comes down to it and you weren't the one taking all the first team reps for most of the part throughout camp and everything, and you go into that environment, even though it's a home game, it was still a pretty big spot. And that's why I think Sandy Valley is going to be A-okay, right? You've already experienced it now in case you are without your quarterback moving forward. But I think Fairless did what I expected them to do, but I do think Sandy Valley is much better than what that score did show. And I think the Cardinals will be able to figure some things out, you know, and get back on the right track here down the stretch.
103 rushing yards for Killy as well as a touchdown and 23 carries. Anthony Stutler also added a touchdown later on, as we mentioned. The 2 first half touchdowns from Colucci to Pumnio, one of which was just a dime over Pumnio's shoulder on the left side of the field into the end zone right before the first quarter, I believe. So yeah, there was that Thursday night affair. We also had many of our games on Friday night that went final. Obviously, the game that I was at Friday night was New Philadelphia taking on CVCA. Now, New Philadelphia moving up to a new conference, moving up to a new division of sorts, and the Quakers had one of the most fascinating Week 1 results I've seen in a while, because the final was 7-2, and it was essentially just a grindhouse at midfield between both schools for the majority of the contest. The Royals got up early when a botched snap on a punt in New Philly's own end zone led to a safety, and then it just wasn't there wasn't anything else going up until the fourth quarter, when New Philadelphia was already on a drive, and then they were able to get another touchdown courtesy of that offensive drive. So I'm looking at the result of where New Philadelphia had a couple of key turnovers and a couple of stumped drives early on in the game. And when you look at that, is that sort of a case of New Philadelphia not getting off on the right foot, or is it like, hey, CVCA really came to play? By the way, Keaton, before you answer that, Keaton Fossil, the quarterback for New Philly in his first career start, getting the touchdown to go up ahead in the game in the fourth.
I think it's hard to answer that question for sure, because it's Week 1, right? And now if this is Week 6 and it's a type of score, I'd be able to say, well, what's CVCA done in the past weeks, and what has New Philly done in past weeks? But I think you have to give credit to both sides, and I also think that a lot of miscues that you would have seen this week, and it's crazy because a lot of people, well, they've already done scrimmages, right? These teams did 2-3 scrimmages before they kicked off the season. You still know in your head, though, during a scrimmage, that game is not going to count against your record. And so as much as people like to put emphasis on it, and you see it right now in the NFL preseason, Mitch, you see some guys out there that are going through it. And last year you saw some guys that are like, oh my gosh, Jamar Chase being one of them. He can't catch a ball. This guy might be a bust. Now, I'm not saying that with high school football, but I'm just saying I think there's a lot of nerves in Week 1. I think CVCA held their own for sure. I think New Philly did a great job as well, based off what I was able to read and going off of what you've told me. I would say both teams did what they wanted to do for the most part, but I do think there was a lot of nerves, especially when you talk about a botched snap. Where I was this past weekend, I saw 4 different extra points have botched snaps, and they were dry conditions. So it's either lack of focus or just, man, we just scored on a huge touchdown run, or man, this is happening, the juices are flowing, and you never know. I remember what it was like when I was playing sports growing up and the adrenaline gets going. So I can't sit here and in my seat and say, oh, the kids just aren't good or this, that, whatever. I think the emotion got the best of a lot of kids this past weekend across Stark, Tusk, and all of Ohio.
For sure. And, we had a number of other finals there. Obviously, Indian Valley beating Beaver 41-20. 2 good games from Grady Kinsey and Gavin Henry, who both had a pair of touchdowns in that one. You also had Harrison Central beating Claymont 36-18. Rittman over Strasburg 32-6. And how about this? Tuscarawas Central Catholic laying it on Lancaster Fisher Catholic 63-14. Now, Jordan Cherry had what, in my opinion, was one of the top performances of the week, if I can get the numbers right here. He had just over he had 3 touchdowns on the game, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to get the numbers up here. But it was a huge contributor to Central's offensive output in that contest, and that was a good one there. Waynedale just chipped by Tusky Valley 21-20. I mean, you had a great night receiving from Trojans receiver Bo Wolf, who had 266 yards on 17 catches. That is wide receiver 1 right there. And then it was just an unfortunate tough loss for the Trojans on a blocked extra point in the fourth quarter, and that was the difference between the two squads. And on Saturday, Garaway ended up going on the road and winning. It was a pretty close game, actually, 21-14 over Bel Air. And then Dover pulling out a close win, 16-13 over Menor Lake Catholic, with Ben Ham reaching the end zone twice to David Denny. including one with 3 seconds left in the game as the Crimson Tornadoes start off the year on a good note. A very solid win for Dover, and we'll see where they go later on in the year, especially when it comes to Week 10, that rivalry game. So when we come back, we'll be going more into the Stark County area of games. Mitch will have more on that, and we'll be right back after these brief messages.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week, visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And welcome back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest in local, statewide, and nationwide athletics. So now we go over to the Stark County area for a multitude of opening week high school football matchups. Mitch, obviously you were in that area. You sure have a lot of information. I'm sure you have a lot of information on that. What were some of your favorite games and performances from week one?
Well, let's start with where I was first, Mitch. I did stay, local in Stark County. I went back to my alma mater and covered Jackson hosting Akron East. Obviously, more so for the storyline. First-year head coach Jay Rohr taking over. He is a Polar Bear alum. He's the only Jackson football alum to have his number retired, actually, and now he is the first-year head coach of the Polar Bears. And what a wild game. We just got done talking about Tusk County, and I told you I think a lot of players' emotions and, the adrenaline and everything. Mitch, it was 7-0 at halftime. It was a bit of a snoozer. The final score ended up being 33-27, but not just that, it was 20-0 Jackson halfway through the third quarter before Akron East came alive. And when I say came alive, I mean they had over 466 yards of offense. Their quarterback, Justin Cox, was phenomenal. This is a quarterback that has a big-time arm. He's very athletic and definitely can run when he wants to. Did not do that because of the wide receivers Akron East had on the outside. Cox ended up throwing 415 yards and 4 touchdowns, only 17 of 27, and at least 3 of those were drop passes. Another one was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half that was picked off. So realistically, not many incompletions from Cox, but at the same time, Jackson was able to chew up that clock. Senior running back Jason Davide went into the halftime locker room with 9 carries and 23 yards and a fumble. Davide ended up finishing with 145 yards, 3 touchdowns on 20 carries. So in 11 carries in the second half, 122 yards and 3 touchdowns. Back-to-back times he touched the ball, he took it to the house. One was a 26-yard touchdown run. The other was a 66-yard touchdown run, I believe, or was over 60 yards. But you have to give credit to Akron East. You talk about being down 20-0. They could have packed it in, but they came roaring back, and I think it was for them more so settling down. They had a lot of penalties in the first half, whether that's undisciplined or that just being pregame jitters, right? You have guys on the outside at wide receiver, false starting. Probably excited to get going on the route, and I can see why now after seeing Justin Cox come alive for Akron East. Ethan Lesko, the new starting quarterback for Jackson, he had 95 yards passing, 1 touchdown, also ran 1 in. Pretty good game for the first-year starter, who actually was not even a quarterback last year at Jackson. He played tight end last year, now moving back to quarterback with Hunter Geisinger gone. But all in all, with Jackson not having their best player and Ben Holzhoffel, he's going to be out for a few more weeks. He was a top returning player, all Federal League player last year. A really good showing, but at the same time, I think the Polar Bears are going to have to learn how to close out games here. And the road for them gets a lot tougher, Mitch. They have 4 consecutive road games right now, 2 out of conference, at Mayfield, at Boardman, and then they will come back and they will be at Perry and at Greene. They do not return home to Robert Fife Stadium until September 23rd. So that's a bit of a rough schedule to open up your season, but at the same time, the back schedule or the schedule at the back end is loaded at home with only 1 road game remaining. So something to keep your eye on there, but just your thoughts from afar.
No, I mean, I like those performances that you mentioned, Lesko and Davide for Jackson. It's obviously, they're 2 that I think can really anchor the Polar Bears offense and keep them in contention for the Federal League. Now, you also go over to other games such as Canton Central Catholic and Perry, in which Perry dropped a 50 spot on the Crusaders. You talk about guys like Jack Talkington, who had, I believe, over 290 yards of offense. I mean, 14 of 24 passing, 184 yards in the air, 106 yards on the ground, which is very good for the Crusaders. Unfortunately, in a losing effort, because Perry was just able to run circles around them offensively. And one that we talked about here, because we ended up talking to Alliance head coach Tim Goodman this week, Lake actually pulling off 41-14 victory over the Aviators.
No, absolutely. And this was a game that we were very excited about. That's why we had Coach Goodman on. We knew Lake returned over 25 returning lettermen. They also had a transfer come in from out of the county, from Summit County, and actually gave them 2 quarterbacks. And, of course, the headline the next day was double the trouble. You had 2 Lake quarterbacks that played, even number of snaps, including junior Cale Jarvis, who was returning, and now senior William Butler II, as they accounted for 5 touchdowns through the air. And they weathered an early storm to down the Aviators 41-14 over at Mount Union, where Alliance plays their home games. So I do think Alliance is a lot better than what that score showed. But Mitch, you have so many guys coming back, it's easy to game plan. But when you have somebody that has experience and you know nothing about, I'm sure that throws a wrench into things too. And that's unfortunately what Alliance had to deal with now with new Lake Blue Streak quarterback William Butler II at quarterback. But I would be afraid to play Lake right now, because Lake, like I said, returned a lot of players. They were 5-5 last year. A lot of those players felt, disappointed in that type of effort last year. And the Blue Streaks are off to a hot start. But not only are they, some other teams in the Federal League got off to a hot start. You had Greene hosting, was it Akron Bookdale, or am I thinking, or Hoover played Akron?
So Hoover played Akron Bookdale and won 35-21.
And we'll start there, because Mason Ashby, the son of the head baseball coach there at Hoover, a 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and that really set the tone over at North Canton. It was all Vikings, and really, Mitch, that was a game I kind of wanted to keep my eye on, because the first few weeks, of preseason, you were reading articles, and Hoover lost 35 players from their Federal League championship team last year. That's a huge number to lose. I don't care how big of a school you are. And there was a article from head coach Brian Baum about how they had just moved a defensive end, trying to make him a left tackle, because they had kids that didn't know, they had positions they had to fill. Kids didn't know how to play that position. So for me, I thought, oh my gosh, could this be just an awful year for Hoover? And sure enough, they turned it around, 35-21 over Akron Bookdale, a good first win for a very, very young, possibly the youngest team in the Federal League. It must be them or Greene, who we're going to move on to here. But special teams coming in clutch for Hoover right away and really got things off to the right start.
No kidding. He also had a 64-yard return. I just read that it was over 230 all-purpose yards, which is unbelievable. Some of the other scores, unfortunately, for McKinley and Massillon, both of them not getting off to the best starts this year. The Bulldogs losing to Menor 34-21, and Cincinnati Moeller beating the Tigers 49-31. They're kind of an interesting start for both schools. I'm a little surprised that they weren't able to get those victories. Also, a big one in the Stark area that we didn't get to in our previous segment. How about in double overtime? it's unfortunately a little tough to cover these teams sometimes because they're kind of out there. Tuslaw beating Conotton Valley 49-48, and Tuslaw getting a big stop late in order to stump the Rockets. That's one of the most interesting endings of this week to me.
That had to have been a thriller. And honestly, it probably would have been one of the top games in the state. But there is another game I know we'll talk about later, maybe when we close the game, because it was on ESPN and Sports Center. And it was a wild play. But to your point about McKinley and Massillon, right? McKinley going up to Menor and losing to the Cardinals. McKinley was very undisciplined. I actually had family there. I actually had a really good friend of mine who was at the game. Penalties cost them. Turnovers cost them. And I'm not getting into week one. These refs were out to make calls. No, even if that's the case, you still have to hold on to the ball. Referees don't affect who's holding on to the ball, and not 3 fumbles from your back. That's always going to cost you. I think Massillon had a good showing, but I think Moeller came out, swung first, and hit him hard, and Massillon just couldn't recover. But Mitch, the cool thing about that, it happened in Stark County, it happened over at Tiger Stadium in Massillon. They are saying it is the biggest high school opener in terms of crowd in the state of Ohio ever. Over 11,000 people were there at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in Massillon. A couple college coaches said you would have thought it was like an Ohio State, Notre Dame type atmosphere, what they expect in week 1 of college football. Wish we could have been over there. Obviously, we can't be at every single game, but I'm sure Massillon's going to be A-okay. You were playing one of the powerhouses in Division I in the state of Ohio, and you hung with them for a while, and Massillon had a couple questions coming into the year, but over there, head coach Nate Moore will not take it easy on his players this week. He expects excellence, and there's a reason that Massillon is consistently one of the top teams in all of Division II in the state of Ohio.
Some of the other scores before we go to break, I wanted to roll out there. You also had Malvern over East Palestine, 31-14. Dowden over East Canton, 42-13. Carrollton over Manchester, 34-13. Glen Oak, 51. Shaker Heights, 14. And West Holmes, 41-7 over Triway. So that is all the time we have for this slate of games. But we'll get to more topics right after this brief break.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris. Think Ferris!
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And welcome back to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest in athletics. So we'll go over now to the professional side of sports. We'll go over now to the NFL, where week 2 of the preseason was this past weekend. And on Sunday, the Browns played at First Energy Stadium for the first time this year, in which they faced off with the Philadelphia Eagles. It was 21-20 the final. Mitch, nobody really cares about the preseason final because it's meaningless, basically, at this point. But what's not meaningless is some of the takeaways from this past game. And I wanted to talk to you about them because I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say about one particular player. Now, the Browns didn't start many of their usual starters. I mean, if any, really, because they're just saving them up for September 11th in Carolina. But when you look at what was going on this past Sunday and you saw some of the performances, one kind of stood out, and that was in what would be, with a full roster, third-string quarterback Josh Dobbs. Now, Dobbs was a brought-in player this year, and in his first 2 preseason games has actually looked pretty decent at this point in the campaign. I believe he was 14 of 20 with a touchdown on Sunday. He also had that run down the sideline where he was able to slip past a defender and get more yardage to go on. Almost lost his shirt in the process, literally and figuratively. I want to get your take on this because the topic that everybody's getting into this week is, maybe Dobbs should be the starter instead of Jacoby Brissett. We're not doing that yet. It's not week 1. We're not facing off with players that aren't going to be on the final roster cuts yet. Would Dobbs' performance in the first 2 games warrant you to give him a multi-year deal as a backup, a serviceable backup in the case that Deshaun Watson or Jacoby Brissett could get into some trouble here? I mean, on-field trouble.
Yes. I think as long as you're giving a fair chance and let Dobbs play in a couple games. I told you, Mitch, last week that I thought Brissett was very underwhelming when I went out to camp and he was facing, air, not a whole lot of defensive players out there. I thought Dobbs looked great. We're not even going to talk about Josh Rosen. I have a whole nother issue with him because he's wearing the number 19, which I cannot believe that's allowed in the city of Cleveland for another quarterback to wear. With Bernie Kosar wearing number 19. Now you let Josh freaking Rosen wear it. Different story. I'm done. My little rant's over. Josh Dobbs, though, he's been impressive in 2 games. And Mitch, to your point, obviously, he's not facing starters. These are a lot of backups. But at the same time, how many times have we seen guys in other preseason games in our history of being a Browns fan that look absolutely abysmal to guys that end up getting cut? It's kind of nice now to see a backup quarterback, or in this case, really a third-string quarterback, perform well. And I think I like him better than Brissett strictly because he's a little more athletic and agile. You saw it yesterday with him scrambling from the pocket, going down the sideline after his shirt was torn. You've got it out of me in previous episodes, and I'm going to stick to it. I think we know what Jacoby Brissett is. I think Josh Dobbs has never been given a fair shot, even though he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a while. But I think that if he gets a chance in a couple games against starters, to your point, and he performs like he has been, I think absolutely that could be a guy you lock up as your backup quarterback behind Watson, because you don't have to change the playbook a whole lot for him, or so it appears so far, right? We've only seen Deshaun for a quarter under Stefanski, but I think the reason they have these quarterbacks in here is they all are very similar, right, in style of play. And that way Stefanski does not have to switch game plans here and there, which I like that a lot. I love having, the same type of system because it's easier on all your players, right? It's easier for the offensive line, your wide receivers, tight ends, running back. But Mitch, to answer your question, yes, I think you have to give him a fair opportunity and look at him potentially as your new backup.
Yeah, I'm willing to give him a fair opportunity. He's 27 years old. He's been in the league now since 2017. He's had 2 tenures with the Steelers and 1 brief one with the Jaguars. The people who are saying, give him the chance to start. We don't know what Brissett looks like, first of all, at this point. I know you mentioned your thoughts of him in camp, but he hasn't faced off with actual competition. And Watson's barely facing the competition. And also, he's not going to be in the preseason for the remainder of it. With Dobbs, I like what I've seen from him. He seems extremely capable of leading an offense should the opportunity come, but you're not facing off with the top guys right now. Even last week against Jacksonville, you weren't doing that really. So I need this game. Even, I'll take that back. Even without this upcoming game against Chicago, give him like a 2-year deal. Give him like a 2 or 3 year deal, like with a smaller portion of money to make him your backup. And if Brissett leaves after the offseason, okay. Rosen's going to be gone after week 11, so whatever. But
should be gone now.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I mean, look, 7 of 20. It's not great.
49.6.
But you need
rating.
you need 3 quarterbacks, I think, in order to be safe without Watson for the first 11 games of the season. So then when week 12 arrives, Watson returns, Brissett's the backup, Dobbs is your third string, or maybe your backup, who knows, and Rosen's gone. But yeah, aside from the quarterback play of this game, go ahead. You got some?
I just realized, Mitch, that, and maybe we did this on purpose. I don't know. I hope I'm not, stepping on what we were supposed to talk about. We have not talked to our audience since the news came out of what Deshaun's going to officially be missing. That news came out on Friday. And so we're now talking for the first time live, knowing Deshaun Watson's not our starting quarterback for the first 11 games.
I thought we talked about that, but we can talk about it now. Obviously, the news came out that the two sides had reached a deal. So the new arbiter that the NFL had brought in is now moot. 11 games and a $5 million fine for Watson. And this is a very difficult number and a very strange number for the NFL to land on. Obviously, we all know why they landed on it, because they want to do the WWE thing and bring a guy back his first game in his former city against the team that kind of ushered himself out of town, but then they helped usher him out as well. And that seems like such a crafty, slimy but crafty move by the NFL to try and bring him back. I subscribe to that belief. I don't know about you personally. I cannot confirm that they did that, but 11 games seems like such a strange number. It almost feels like they wanted to do a 10-game suspension, and then the NFL saw that game against Houston. They said, wait a minute now.
Yep. Because, Mitch, the NFL loves their money. They love their TV ratings. I mean, you want to talk about the cap going up. We just had all these new deals come in. I mean, Amazon is now in charge of Thursday Night Football. You have all your usual crews, right? Al Michaels, Sunday Night Football, not anymore. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Thursday Night Football, or the game of the day on Sunday for Fox, no more. You have so much shuffling going around here. And I believe when I looked at that schedule for now that is week 13, or is it week 12 and we have only played 10 games?
It would be week 12, I believe, right?
Okay, so we'll only have 10 games played, I believe.
Let me check.
Or no, it's an 11 games. That would be week 13 because our bye is before then as well, I think.
So, yeah. Because we had the bye. Yeah.
So there weren't many appetizing games on the schedule that day. So I'm with you, Mitch. Whether people want to believe it or not, I just don't think it's a coincidence that he's coming back, going to Houston. The Texans, who are not supposed to be very good this year, now will probably have their highest rated game of the year. But Mitch, this brings up the question. That's why I brought this up. It's a very hostile environment. Do the Browns take him back? Do they take him back to Houston? Because this is basically going to be the type of return that you saw LeBron James have when he came back to Cleveland his first tenure, and all the boos and everything. Only you're talking about somebody that openly came out and said he did not want to play there. We know about all the off-field issues, which I'm not, that is done and over with, right? The suspension's been named. But there have been people that say, do the Browns take him back there? Do they let him play in that game, or do they just basically say he's not going to play that game because of the type of, you don't know what the crowd's going to be like, and that's just a tough spot to be your very first game back.
I don't agree with that. First of all, you want to put your best team forward no matter who is playing in a certain week, unless there's such really dire circumstances. And I don't think these circumstances would be dire. Week on, what was it, December something against Houston, 4. December 11th, I think. Whatever date it is, I don't think it's going to be so hostile that he can't handle it. I mean, obviously, I know there's some harsh feelings between the two sides at the end, and then you have everything to where a lot of opposing fan like crowds will be a little more volatile towards him. I mean, we might get to another story here involving another athlete where his own crowd kind of was at him a little bit, but on the surface he didn't seem to care about it. And I don't think Watson would necessarily be like, I can't, we can't do this, or the Browns wouldn't be like, we can't do this. I would think they'd respect him enough to figure, hey, he can handle it. He's a professional. Let's use him. Let's use him. Beat the Texans. I would think pretty easily. I would hope, if I go back to this tape a few weeks from now and I'm wrong, then that's that. But I can't see them just relying on a backup to take on Houston. Houston's not going to be that terrible, first of all, but at the same time, you obviously want to put your best team forward.
they will not be the worst team in football this year. I actually think that they're better than a lot of people give them credit for. I still think, though, that if Brissett comes out here and plays like some people think he's capable of playing, which I hope I eat my words, you could probably go down there and beat that team. It's not like you're playing a playoff contender. I'll put it that way. You're not playing a team that, in my opinion, is going to vie for the top 2-3 overall pick. You're not playing a team, though, that when you play them that week in December, that's going to be, hey, we got to win 5 of our last 6 or 4 of our last 6 to get in the playoffs. I think it's a team that you can beat with a backup quarterback if everyone else is healthy. And that's the big thing. But just some food for thought. I just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Because it's a team like Houston, I don't think they're going to be a bottom 10 team. I think they are a bottom 10 team, but they're not a bottom 5 team in the NFL. So I think that they can at least, the Browns can handle having Deshaun there. You know, he obviously knows much of the system. Obviously, you have a new coach in there, but he knows a lot of the same players, and that's how it is. So yeah, when we get on back, we'll get on to more sports topics. I want to get into some baseball as well, and maybe some basketball, and we'll be right back. But first,
you asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit BuckeyeCareerCenter.org for more information.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
Where you matter. You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
And we're back here on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest in sports. We just got done talking about the Browns, Deshaun Watson's suspension, their preseason performance against the Eagles, and obviously they'll be taking on Chicago in the last preseason game this coming Saturday. So we'll get to more on that. And I'm pulling an audible on this segment because I don't know if you have the audio at some point, Mitch. Let me know. But there was a release. You mentioned the Amazon getting the Thursday night slot for the NFL this year, and they actually just released their new score, their new theme for television that'll be released with the Chargers and Chiefs game that's going to be coming up here in a few weeks. So I mean, if do you have the
I do
thing together? Okay. I want to hear a snippet of this song, not so much that we can get copyrighted, but I want to hear the intro and get some takes on it. So this is Amazon's new NFL theme that was released this week. Yes, this is Amazon's new theme. It's an interesting one. It kind of runs the same beat 4 times in a row at this point in the song, and
I'll go deeper.
Pretty much all the time I think we can get.
Well, I wanted to pause it and give us a little break there, and then I'll play the middle part for everybody here later.
I mean, yeah, I was about to say I don't know how much we could play, but I mean, I really want to get into some discussion on it because this is the sort of thing that I kind of like to talk about when it comes to sports, is just kind of judging certain aspects of the game and the way it's presented. And Mitch, this is something I know just based on nonsense that I learned in my life. The guy who did the NFL on Sunday night theme for NBC, his name is John Williams, and he's one of the most famous film and composers working, or he just retired actually, but of all time. And he also did a lot of stuff for Star Wars, among other films, obviously. And he was the one who kind of came up with the Imperial Death March, the Empire song, basically. You can tell that the guy who did that did the Sunday night theme. And I believe that the person who did this might have worked with on a lot of Marvel films. This feels like somebody who worked on a lot of like Marvel films. Like it feels like a very heroish kind of beat to it.
No, 100%. I think that I told you when we were talking about this earlier, I felt like it was almost a mix of a lot of the football songs we're used to when you talk about the TV networks and the networks that have rights to broadcast NFL games, which it's all good. It's going to take a little time getting used to for sure. As is going watching Big Ten football here, which we can probably touch on that later too, because they have a new TV deal, so they'll be leaving ESPN. But it will be different, and I'm sure listening to it now, some people might be like, "Oh, it's okay," or "I don't like it." But Mitch, if you're like me, it always changes when your team is the one playing and that logo flips up on the screen and the music's playing behind it. So I think you kind of have to wait for teams to play on Thursday night. And I am a fan of it, Mitch. I love intro music. I love pregame music, and I like how every network is different. I'm curious as to where this would fall for you, though, in your favorites.
I mean, it's the newest one, so obviously it's going to be at a disadvantage because a lot of the other ones have been so long standing. And I like that there hasn't been like a major change to many of the networks in a while because they're so well liked. I mentioned Toprak, by the way. If I'm getting her name wrong, I apologize. She ended up working on the score for Captain Marvel. So that's like her big thing. I mentioned Marvel. It definitely sounds like a hero kind of flying in. As far as the best one, I mean, it's obviously NFL on CBS. That's the number one out of all of them, because that gets you hyped for, however many hours you're going to be watching the NFL throughout the day on a Sunday. You come home, you sit on the couch, and it's just, you get engrossed in it. I would say that the Fox theme, very, very solid as well. I don't like it when Fox decided to use it for baseball for so many years before they ended up going back to the far superior version. And then for the rest of them, it's funny how Monday night we kind of all referenced it for so long, but I think it has kind of taken a back seat to those two, in my opinion. And I feel like I'm missing one. Amazon had, there was a Thursday night version on, not Amazon, NFL Network had a version for Thursday nights that sounded like Christmas to me.
Yeah.
Especially the opening, like with the opening, like little bells and stuff. And I feel like I'm missing one.
You're missing my number two.
Your number two,
NBC Sunday Night Football.
Oh, did I miss NBC? Oh, okay. I guess I did miss that. Yeah, I would probably say it would be CBS, then Fox, and then NBC, and then ESPN, and then everybody else, basically. So, but no, NBC is your number two?
NBC is my number two, Mitch. I am standing with you, though, for my number one. It is CBS. There's something about that song that just gets you so hyped up. I mean, the amount of times I was still talking myself into the Browns winning a football game on CBS when we were 0-15 was just magical. CBS was magical, being able to put that feeling into you. It's hype. It's a very hype song. When they have the graphics playing, tackles being made, touchdowns being caught, it's awesome. NBC is my number two. It makes a run at number one for me, though, Mitch, because I have a really, really great memory with that. And it was the Cleveland Browns going into Pittsburgh on Sunday night in the 2022 or 2020 playoffs and just absolutely destroying the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I have very fond memories with that song. I love it. That's my number two. Fox is three. You can say what you want about me. I've never been a fan of the Monday night theme song. So honestly, I think Amazon is already tied with Monday night.
You've never been a theme like at all of the Monday. That's the one that people would they know the opening beats to. They go dun 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 dun.
I know,
and that's the one.
Well, here's probably why. And like I haven't. Anytime you play fantasy football and you play on ESPN, that song comes on, and when it comes on, when it's your turn to pick, it scares the crap out of me. Okay, so I might have a little PTSD from it. I don't know, but I agree. It's probably the most iconic, right? Dun 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 dun. But it's just it's not me. It's not me.
I will say the NBC theme, I like it, but it almost gives me a sense of like, oh crap, it's Sunday night, it's 9 in the evening, and I gotta finish my homework before school tomorrow. Gets me going back to that one. And also when they would have the Super Bowl on, I'd be so excited for the biggest game of the year. And I thought, oh man, I got to go to school. Now there would be some times, a few times during my lifetime where there would be snow days the following day that I would figure out during the night. So that was nice. But most of the time it was me having to groggily go in to first period and trying to talk with somebody about the results from last night and then getting scolded by the teacher for talking. So that's why it's number 3 for me.
That's fair.
I feel like yeah. Are there any other NFL themes that we didn't get to? I mean,
I don't know what Nickelodeon's like.
Oh, that's right. I don't know that if there is a theme for that. I feel like it just would probably be like splat sounds and SpongeBob laughing. You know, I like the Nickelodeon broadcasts they've done over the last year. I think Nate Burleson does a good job on those. Obviously, Iron Eagles kid. They got a good thing going there, obviously, and it's nice to see like it's funny to see one of the playoff games be I don't want to say reduced to that, but they reserve it for the sort of dumb stuff that they ended up doing on that network. And you're looking up
yeah, I'm not finding one. It just highlights and stuff, so we won't play that.
There's no NFL theme that like used to be on a net, because I guess the whole thing is that all the networks that have done football still do football.
Yeah.
You don't have like an NBA on NBC situation, or like an MLB on NBC, or an NHL on USA Network. Well, I was about to say that's changed. By the way, not to get off topic here too, we're kind of getting off topic today, but like, how about seeing, you know what, I'm going to save that for the next topic, because I think that's the big, that's one of the bigger ones I want to get to in the final segment. We'll come on back. I want to get to more into this music stuff, and I also want to get into maybe some random topics if we can get it. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, why don't we go to break listening to 10 more seconds of the Amazon Thursday Night theme song of the middle of it for the listeners.
Sure. Hopefully we don't get struck. Here we go. Amazon.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
And we're back here on the final segment of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. We just got done talking about the best themes for the NFL on television, and honor of Amazon's new theme that was released this week, which again sounds like a Marvel movie to me. Mitch, before the break, I alluded to one that I wanted to get to. Have you seen? I assume you saw, because of the Big Ten's new television deal with Fox, CBS, and NBC, that is expected to bring in more than $7 billion to the conference. They released a video of the NCAA CBS theme with Big Ten schools. How bad did that throw you off?
It was very, very bizarre. I can't even lie. It's something that we're never accustomed to. Not only that, but not only have we signed with CBS, but also NBC. I've never once had to turn to Channel 3 living at home to watch the Ohio State Buckeyes play on Channel 3. So it's going to be really weird, Mitch. I mean, you're talking about for the first time ever, and a lot of people just kind of associate this with football. This is everything. Everything is moving to CBS and Big Ten Sports, excuse me.
Wait.
Sorry, I don't know if Big Time Sports is in negotiations.
Charlie pull off? Look, Charlie Jones has pulled off a lot of big deals in his lifetime. If you're telling me that he went to Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren and he went, let me tell you something. I have a deal for you, Mr. Kevin Warren, down in Columbus. You can broadcast all your home games this year from the Horseshoe to Big Time Sports, and I'll throw in a free Big Time Sports t-shirt.
I may have just let
Kevin
the cat
Warren
out
goes,
of the bag.
yes.
Sorry, Charlie. If you were in negotiations with them, I apologize. If not, then we're okay.
I might have ruined it now. He might be pulling out of the deal here soon. So,
but
no, that's really cool. That's really cool. What seeing the Big Ten teams on CBS, and of course Fox and NBC will be a part of the deal as well. So we still get to hear Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt, as well as Jenny Taft from Columbus, which is good. NBC, obviously, it's always been reserved for Notre Dame, pretty much. Well, now it's on Peacock at most of the time.
That brings me to this point. You heard Kevin Warren last week say he wants the Big Ten to get to 20 teams. They currently sit at 16 with the addition of UCLA and USC. So 4 more teams are going to have to fill that. I think that it's pretty inevitable that Notre Dame's going to have to come join the Big Ten, and that's part of the reason NBC was in the deal.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be part of the deal at this point. And in Notre Dame, it makes sense geographically, although that's out the window at this point. It makes sense financially if NBC is going to be a part of this. I mean, the Big Ten is projected to eventually distribute $80 to $100 million per year to each of its 16 members. So even Rutgers and Maryland are going to get more money in on this.
Nebraska,
for some reason. And the deal, of course, doesn't start until July of 2023. So we still have a year left of this stuff, and then we'll get to it.
So it's so weird to me. We're never going to be able. The only time you're going to be able to watch a football game consisting of a Big Ten team on ESPN will be the College Football Playoff, because ESPN has those rights until the deal is up. And the only time you'll be able to watch college basketball with a Big Ten team on ESPN will be not big non-conference games that ESPN wants to cover. So you know how the Big Ten and ACC are always doing that challenge every year. So probably like an Ohio State Duke, or Ohio State North Carolina, or obviously Michigan's been up there in basketball recently. Michigan State and Duke played over the years because Coach K and Izzo, but it's going to be really weird now to not really have to turn the channel to ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU to watch any Big Ten sporting events at all. Obviously, the other sport will be the College Baseball World Series, College Softball World Series that ESPN has the rights to. Should a Big Ten team get there again? You know, nobody's been there in a few years besides the last team being Michigan. So it's going to be really bizarre, but I like it. I'm excited for something new, and everything's just getting so crazy now, Mitch, that I like it. And I don't have to watch Alabama play a school I've never heard of in week 10 of the college football season on CBS anymore.
What was that school that teams that always play? The team that they sound like CVCA, but they're not. I can't think of that. The College of something. I know that Alabama played them.
You mean the
recently,
team that just played at Benson last year, the fake football team that got on ESPN?
No, not Bishop Sycamore, but I feel like Alabama in like maybe it was 2019 schedule played. It's one of those like weird sounding schools. Not to say that the school is particularly weird. I'm just saying that. I'm gonna get I'm gonna figure this out before the show ends. But we mentioned I wanted to mention some baseball, and then we got into this whole thing. The Guardians split with the White Sox this week. Last night they didn't get to play. It's a tough look to not be able to play when your football team is playing right down the road. Obviously, baseball and football play in different conditions, obviously, and the baseball field was not ready to. They didn't have a window between the storms that they could play in, but obviously it's not a great look. And then basketball, it was, I believe, the Kevin Durant report that came out this morning regarding that, there could be a potential thing with the Memphis Grizzlies. Nothing official yet. Memphis, I believe, has 5 first-round picks that they could work with to send to Brooklyn. I don't see it personally happening yet because the Nets, I think, still want to be in somewhat contention, want to keep Kyrie Irving in the mix, and they would probably need more players than picks in order to not just be reduced in the East. Although Memphis would immediately become a contender in the West, and they would play against Golden State on Christmas Day. So that would be immediately one of the top matchups in the area.
I don't see how Kevin Durant gets moved. I'm gonna sit here as we record this, and as it goes out to our audience on Monday, August 22nd, Mitch, there's no way I sit here right now with any confidence and tell you Kevin Durant gets moved. Now, strictly for entertainment purposes, oh my gosh, sign me up and send him to the Grizzlies and let me watch the Grizzlies and Warriors battle it out, because we know those two teams don't like each other. We know they have a lot of beef. We know they've written things in the locker room and they've said things on social media, and I love it, right? You want to talk about getting popcorn? I'll get my Christmas candy for my stocking that morning, sit on the couch and watch that game gladly. But I don't see any way that Kevin Durant gets moved. He's not in any position to hold out. I mean, he signed a deal to be there for 3-4 more years, and what, guy's not happy? Well, you decided to play with Kyrie Irving. You both agreed on your head coach, Steve Nash. I'm so sick and tired of it. I'm so happy the Cleveland Cavaliers are relevant again, and we don't, knock on wood, have any prima donnas that are going to ruin anything or, take their talents to South Beach or force a head coach out of here. But it's entertaining, but at the same time, I'm done with it. I don't see any way Kevin Durant gets moved. I think Kyrie Irving gets moved first, strictly because of the shenanigans he's pulled over the past few years.
Never forget, Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals 2 years ago, that much a difference between Kevin Durant's foot and the three-point line kept the Nets from reaching that conference finals over, I believe it was Milwaukee.
It was.
So, yeah, never forget that. And who knows where the NBA might be right now if the Nets had made it to Atlanta. I believe it was Atlanta that year, wasn't it? Because they beat Philly, and they easily would have steamrolled Atlanta, and then who knows, man?
You're talking
the Citadel, by the way, is the team that I was talking about. The Citadel,
yes.
Which I remember hearing that name on TV one time, and I said, "Why do they have a the in their name?" And my dad told me, "Shut up," and he told me to be quiet for the rest of the game. So that's the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching. Obviously, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and Spotify, SoundCloud as well on the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. You can also find us on YouTube. You're probably listening or watching this on there as well. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Big Time Sports, Mitch Spinell, Mitchell Balla. We got very simple usernames. Before we go, Mitch, what's the random fact of the day?
The moon actually has moonquakes, similar to how Earth has earthquakes.
I had heard that before. I was thinking about the moon the other day, but not for that reason. So there you go. Nope. Okay. Right. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Have yourselves a good day.